Hi there and welcome. I'm Brad Satin, school media and crisis communications trainer with Focus Media Services. At Focus, we help school districts communicate clearly and confidently for those everyday moments and when the pressure is on, because let's face it, sooner or later, every school district is going to face a crisis. And so the question is, are you ready to respond? If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our free crisis communications newsletter. It's called The Warning Bell, and you'll find the link in the QR code below. Now, in our crisis communications training, there's something we tend to say a lot, and I think for good reason. When your school district is in the spotlight for the wrong reasons, what your legal team wants you to say often is not what the community wants or needs to hear. Attorneys are focused on protecting you legally, which is absolutely critical. But if your public statement comes across as cold, vague, or with too much legal mumbo jumbo, it can cause real damage to trust. And so today we're diving into that tension with someone who lives in both worlds. Joining me is Michael Puppio. He's founding partner of the law firm Raffaele Puppio, based in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, just outside Philadelphia. And Mike specializes in education and municipal law and serves as solicitor for a number of school districts and local governments across Southeast Pennsylvania. Mike, great having you here, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So let's start at the beginning here. What is the role of a school attorney in a crisis, and at what point should school leadership get legal counsel involved?
The role of a school attorney at all times is to protect the district, not protect an individual, not protect a superintendent, not protect a board member, but rather protect the district as an entity. That is the role of a school solicitor. In a crisis situation, occasionally your solicitor serves in a combination of roles, being a spokesperson as well. But the most important thing to recognize is that the district solicitor is in charge of protecting the entity. And you are always going to, at some point, be in a crisis situation, and there's certain things you need to know. And the number one thing is that you don't know everything at the time you are being asked your question.
I would say that is number one. I mean, if your primary job is managing a school's legal risk, how then do you balance that with transparent communication?
That is the most difficult thing, and there's a word for that, and it's compromise, and it is communication internally. The key is to try and communicate with your constituents as to what the issue is in the manner in which you're allowed to do so. How do we convey to you as a reporter what we want to say while complying with all of the laws? Districts can never discuss personnel. So if there's something that took place with an individual who is employed by the district or a third party of the district in any way, the easiest call is no comment. And everyone knows that's not the answer. That's not the answer you want to say. That's not the answer you can say. And it's not the answer you should say. So your key is communication and compromise. And you have to work to find that within whatever crisis you're dealing.
Yeah, you talk about the no comment. As a reporter for 30 some years. Really and truly, just the simple no comment really is the worst answer because it doesn't sound authentic. It doesn't sound genuine. There are ways to say no comment without saying those words, no comment.
A no comment appears disrespectful and conveys the message that it is not worthy of your comment, that you didn't take the time to discuss. You have to indicate why you can or can't talk. But first and foremost, you have to indicate what you know at the time. You know, you do have to communicate facts, and you also have to be very clear that you don't possess all the facts. Most of the facts that occurred in a crisis are known by someone else well before they're known by the spokesperson and well before they're known by the administration or board members or anything like that. So you have to understand you're dealing with a very rapid pace. And you just have to keep up, and you have to understand it's going to change and emerge as the crisis unfolds.
One of the articles we had in our October newsletter is what we called the response to the response to the response to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The headlines were flooded with teachers, staff, and even school board members who wrote something on their social media feed, outrage that followed by some in the public, and then school districts disciplining that person for the comment. We know people lost their jobs. And it's really a lesson here that there is no divide between your public and private persona. So if you post something on social media, it can get you in trouble. Mike, what are your thoughts?
There's a whole body of law that discusses district employees' free speech and their free speech rights. And very simply, when you enter into employment with a school district, you agree to curtail some of the rights that we are all provided under the Constitution because you are working for a school district and you check some of those rights at the door. The big topic, the big issue today is what about social media? Do you check those rights when you leave the school building? And basically, the law is unless you say something that completely disrupts your employment as a teacher or the entity in which you work, you generally have those rights. There's the legal response, there's the practical response. There's the can you? Yes, you can, compared to should you. What I took away from this the most was that there is a difference between the legal definition for which you are hired by the school district and teaching as a profession. In the legal realm, you may have been able to make those contents and it would be acceptable. In viewing teaching as a profession, you're always a teacher. It follows you. And the question then becomes, what is it that some of these posts were teaching? And that is the question. And it's a hot topic right now. But the law is kind of clear, but it emerges, it changes, it develops so quickly as technology develops so quickly. The courts don't keep up with technology. They just don't keep pace, and it takes a number of years before you gain a full body of law under things like Facebook, Instagram, the social media. I try to advise my clients. There are so many things that districts get asked to do. You get asked to take a position to advocate for X or advocate for Y, be it funding, be it cultural, be it many things. I try to have folks and I just tell them, look, you are elected as elected representatives. Here is your job duties. And as administrators, here are your job duties. Pay attention to your job. Your job is not to be a congressperson. Your job is not to be a state legislator. Your job is to educate children, focus on those things, whether your job in the school district is a technology thing. Let's focus on those things and try not to allow the social media world and all of the things that are currently very loud background noise into the real responsibilities of what you have.
You know, every week in our newsletter, we highlight some of the crises that make headlines in schools around the country. And we do this because it's an important part of building a crisis communications plan, learning and watching how other schools respond to things. We see a lot of cases of people behaving badly. Sometimes it's criminal, sometimes it's not. There are viral videos out there, photos that become news. The media picks it up. Suddenly there's outrage created, school policies that come under fire. You work in real time. What types of crises tend to carry the most legal risk for schools?
Well, the ones that we see currently in real time are the ones that have the videos and the ones that then capture the attention of a whole community, the visual and the speed and rapidity with which these images are then transmitted. You have to always determine, is it real? But what is it? It is those personal things. It is the threat to safety. It is unfortunately, the school shootings, the swattings that take place, the fake calls about emergency. It's all significant disruption, and even the fraudulent calls can give rise to big safety issues. And those things then sometimes they provide you with gaps. You identify gaps in things you would have done in a crisis situation, but then other times they can result in very, very, very serious harm to the entities.
Well, you talked about AI. Let's talk more about AI for a minute, because it's certainly a top issue and concern for schools today. From a legal aspect, what are the challenges schools are facing in implementing AI policies? I mean, many schools, I think, are still trying to wrap their head around it. And if they can't even do that, it's hard to communicate what the policies are.
Very true. Artificial intelligence, you have a series of schools of thought, and one of them has to do with the reduction of screen time and the removal of personal devices and things like that. And then you have the alternate vision of embrace. And I have to tell you, I am in the vision of embrace in terms of how you look at things. If you just look at the past and you look at pick the automobile. Automobile's never going away. It's gonna emerge. It's going to change. It's an individualized form of transportation. That's what we want. That's what we're going to have. Things like technological advances like AI or not, we have to embrace them. They provide unprecedented abilities for individualized learning and an ability to bridge a gap between generalized knowledge and specialized education plans for learners and things like that.
But
But
AI
from a
is still in
legal,
its infancy, right? We're still
absolutely.
very early on, so it's hard to really wrap your hands around it.
It is, but we have to make sure we're working it. If you utilize it to become lazy, that is where all the ethical issues come in. Is the work yours? Are you thinking? If you embrace that type of technology and you have those administrators and educators that are looking to utilize it and to take the best of it while making sure folks understand the worst of it, AI is a topic that will continue to grow and evolve for both law and education and communication, most importantly.
That's what I was going to say. From a communication standpoint, it's about authenticity, right? It's about saying we don't have all the answers. No one does yet, but we are working our best to try to come up with solutions and policies that make sense.
Correct.
Let's
Correct.
talk about the legal challenges to federal and state mandates. We live, in a very politically charged environment right now on the federal level. The Trump administration has been dismantling the Department of Education, federal, state governments laying down oftentimes new rules for education. Some of the newsworthy things like displaying the 10 Commandments or putting up posters supporting gay rights. So how does a school district navigate this, avoid kind of stepping on a bomb when everyone seems to have an opinion and everyone is watching and everyone is ready to pounce?
It is a highly charged environment right now, and that is the challenge. And it is a pendulum. The pendulum swings. Please don't misunderstand one thing. The United States Department of Justice was bringing actions against the school districts all throughout the Biden era for their individual Title IX regulations. And now the pendulum has swung and they are not exactly opposite, but they have changed. So the fact that the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division is involved is not anything new. But when it comes to the mandates are there. Don't make yourself a target by not dealing with the mandates. Deal with them in the most efficient way that you can handle it without looking to inflame the situation.
Taking it even a level down, there are teachers who are refusing to take posters off of walls, and school districts are saying you must do that because that's the new rule. So it's not just the school district, but it's individual personnel that can cause and create concern as well.
That is your legal question, is what is that poster? What does that poster mean? That is an area of the law that is currently developing and it's continuing. But you start with a basic concept. The school district owns that classroom. They are within their rights to determine what gets displayed in that classroom. Very similar to curriculum. As the district, the board of directors, and administrators, they set curriculum and teachers carry it out. What should everyone be looking to do? Some form of compromise, some form of direct understanding. If a sign means one thing to me and one thing to you, then it doesn't just mean one thing. And how do we classify that? How do you place that in a policy?
A starting point here is developing these policies and thinking these out before you need to, right? Not when the crisis hits, but preparing for it ahead of time.
Absolutely. We know that schools have always been a cultural evolution, that many things that evolve in our culture start at the schools. You begin to see trends in our youth and reaction as the way that parents and families react, usually in schools before anywhere else, and begin to say, hey, we need to begin thinking about, do we need to regulate this? Is this something that impacts our mission as a school district, and how do we regulate it? So yes, the answer to your question is a definitive yes. It helps to have these policies in advance.
Last question I wanted to ask you, and it kind of ties into some of the things we've already talked about, and that's just the fact that we live in a world today of misinformation. And anyone with an opinion can post anything online as truth, and there will be people out there who take it as truth, whether it is or not, if it fits their narrative. So from a legal standpoint, how should schools approach social media, for one, during a crisis, especially when they see misinformation spreading? When do they get involved?
Most school districts maintain a Facebook page in today's world, along with their website, and that should be the source of news with regard to the district.
That is the first line of defense, right? The website, social media pages. And it is, I would say, from a communication standpoint, also important to watch how your social media pages develop. What are people writing? Respond to misinformation, not in a way that is defensive, but corrective, right? You want to make sure that at the end of the day, you are controlling your narrative and not letting someone else do it for you.
Correct. And there are degrees within which school districts can do that, because every school district has communication with each and every one of the parents and guardians via email, cell phone, text messages, and the various superintendents, depending upon their communication level, depending upon the topic, depending upon the level of necessity to communicate, has all types of communications prepared to go directly to parents to try and minimize those things. But when you see, if you're at a sub level that doesn't warrant a direct communication to a parent, but you can see, hey, this narrative is about to take off in the wrong way, then yes, you do want to try and say, hey, in some corrective measure. But as we know with social media, no one ever gets the last word on social media. It doesn't ever end. So if you are going to weigh in as a school district, you really want to be measured. You want to take your corrective measure, and you want to try and get in and out as quickly as possible, and not get weighed down by the other factors that occur in discourses and comments.
And again, I think that's my final thought, is to plan ahead, right? We talk a lot about building a crisis communications plan, and step one of that plan is creating a team. And the solicitor, the attorney, is an important part of that team. So you could start laying out potential scenarios, things that might realistically happen, so that if and when they do, you're already 50 or 75% of the way there, because you know who does what role people play, the logistics of how you're going to get the word out.
You don't want to learn on the job. There's no question about that. And one thing that is certain, as sure as God made green apples, you will be in that bucket. It just happens. And how you react to it will dictate, the future, some of the future course of public interactions, or your future meetings and things like that. No question.
Michael Puppio, solicitor for school districts around the Philadelphia suburbs. Thanks so much for joining me. I, by the way, do plan to have you back again, because we could talk, I'm sure, all day long about this.
Brad, it's always an interesting area of the law, and I thank you. It's my pleasure and privilege to be here. Look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.
And I thank you for joining us at home as well. If you'd like to learn more about our media and crisis communications curriculum, what we have to offer, or if you have even a communications challenge that you're facing, I can be reached at brad@focusmediaservices.com. That's all for now. I'm Brad Satin with Focus Media Services. We will see you again next time.